Live from MMA Fighting Studios, this is Between the Links. And now, your host, Mike Heck.
The iconic voice of Esterlin welcomes you to a brand new edition of BTL. Happy Thursday to us all as we embark on our monthly Q&A edition of the program following UFC 306. Two new champs being crowned, the experience, etc. Love these shows, but today we're doing things a little bit differently. Jed Meshew is going to hop on a little bit later on for our usual banter session and to answer your questions. But right now, we kick off the show in a very special way because what better way to react to UFC 306 than to do so with the man who's in the building, who provided the damn soundtrack for the event, who called the action from start to finish, my fellow New Englander turned Southeast resident, the lead commentator of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. He is none other than the great Jon Anik. Jon, how are you, my man? Good to see you.
Oh, I'm doing great. It's good to do this live. It's good to come in off the Esterlin vocals. I like the music bed. As far as I'm concerned, we can keep that going as long as you goddamn well please. But it's great to be with you. We've never done this live. And trying out this new studio at my twin brother's space to have a little bit more room. And hopefully it goes swimmingly. Backup setup in the kitchen just in case.
It looks spectacular. Crystal clear. The guests have had crystal clear pictures the last 2 weeks. Luke Thomas did a tremendous job last week. You're coming in hot this time. And look, UFC 306 is wrapped in pack. A lot of changes have been made in the title discussions. But let's talk about the venue, the production, the scenes inside the Sphere in Las Vegas. What was it like being there? And then after you kind of got the sneak preview and the first looks and everything, did it exceed your expectations still?
So all week, I just was sort of marinating in the fact that Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier and my twin brother and all these people weren't going to have seen any of this until they walked in there on Saturday night. And given all that my Saturday holds, I'm thankful that I was privy to some of this because spectacular doesn't even begin to describe it. A broadcasting experience of a lifetime for me. And it sounds ungrateful to say, please give us another shot in there. But that's all I think a lot of us kept feeling. It just was so amazing. I mean, Diego Lopes putting his hands in the air. My brother captured it. If there's like a coliseum behind him, bro, it was absolutely unbelievable start to finish. And, I do think 10 fights is the right way to do it. I'd be fascinated to see how the UFC and how our live production team would approach a second chance in there when it comes to fight card and thematically what you would do, whether it was a celebration of the UFC or, as Daniel Cormier would like, the Stars and Stripes. But just incredible. And I think a lot of people are suggestive that with this sort of merging of sports, art, and entertainment that, with venues in the future, there's a lot of things that could happen from here in terms of venue construction and everything else. But to be a part of it, very special. And just give us another shot, Michael. Just one more shot.
I know there were some photos of like Joe Rogan looking at it for the first time that you had posted. Like, what did he say to you? Was he just like, oh my God, this is so ridiculous? What was that like?
So he's seen it all. He's a Renaissance man, far more that than me. So I still felt convicted in the fact that he would be effectively blown away. And yeah, just jaw dropped and oh my gosh, and one visual sort of upstages the one that came before it. And we went all the way up to the 400 section, as high as you can go, which are some of the best seats to do our pay-per-view open. And I actually didn't quite get down in time. And so we had a little bit of a lead navigation in terms of our throw to the next piece. But it was insane to see their reactions for the first time. And you think you know what you're walking into and you really don't. And, even if heavy metal isn't necessarily my number one music genre, if there was a heavy metal concert at Sphere and I had recreational time in Vegas, that's what I'd go do. Like if there's anything going on in that building, I would want to go there. But for a live sporting event to play out like that with live fighting, just spectacular.
I know you and I are not on an island with this. You just said like, we got to do this again. Like I know the undertaking was ginormous and the amount of work behind the scenes and shout out to everyone involved. I feel like Zach Candido, who you talk about pretty much every time we speak, he's like one of he may be the unsung hero of UFC 306 with how this all came together. But after seeing this, like it doesn't have to be Noche UFC. This would be cool for International Fight Week or something else. Like, just that's one card every year. It could be a different theme. It was just so damn cool, man. Like, even on television, I don't know if you got the chance to watch the broadcast back, but there were certain points where the production value, you're not in the building, but it made it seem like you're pretty damn close to being inside the building. I thought it was friggin' wild.
Yeah, great lengths were gone to make it translate on television, and credit to go around to so many people. Craig Borsari and Chris Kartsmark, Zach Candido, of course, and Michael LaPlante, and then directors Anthony Giordano. We brought in Glenn Weiss. On and on I could go. But bro, when you look at the fight cards for UFC 307 and UFC 308 on paper, Jose Aldo's fighting on the prelims in Salt Lake City. UFC 308, I don't say this hyperbolically, maybe the best fight card I've ever been assigned. Go to Wikipedia and look up UFC 308, right? So just imagine for a second, UFC 307 or UFC 308 on paper, Khamzat Chimaev versus Robert Whittaker at Sphere fucking Vegas, and tell me we couldn't effectively change the game forever. So this was an amazing experience. I just think we need one more shot.
Completely agree. But John, we had the experience, as I talked about, but we have two new champions as well. One is Merab Dvalishvili, and there's just something in the air this year, my man. The fighters who are long overdue for their championship opportunities, the long roaders to the top of the division, they're cashing in and making it happen. First it was Bilal Muhammad. Now it's Merab Dvalishvili. He gets his chance. He beat Sean O'Malley via unanimous decision. And it was, it was some of the Merab chaos, but it was a controlled chaos approach from Merab. And despite a couple of 48, 47 cards, it sure didn't seem like that close of a fight, did it?
He's the best bantamweight in the world. And, even if it wasn't, to your point, as chaotic or as offensively pleasing as some of his last fights when he attempted 49 takedowns against Petr Yan, Merab Dvalishvili's the man. And in the rub there of what you said was his chance. And not unlike Bilal Muhammad, he was getting one chance and broke through in a big way. You're right, it wasn't a close fight. And even if you want to suggest that O'Malley won rounds 3 and 5, the outcome didn't really hang in the balance. O'Malley did need a finish in round 5. And, I love Sean. I really do. I'm excited to see the rebuild. He's a better grappler and wrestler than people think. He has owned this loss, honestly, in terms of being out-strengthened. But Merab's the man, and it's amazing to think about a fight between him and Umar Nurmagomedov, because anyone who's fighting Merab, he's so quick, right? Like Sean O'Malley has a speed advantage against everybody, seemingly. But, man, Merab's quickness combined with his will, that third lung that none of us seem to have other than him and maybe Colby Covington and a few others, figures to be a really hard guy to beat. So really happy for him, for the journey, for my friend Ray Longo, for Aljamain Sterling, who suboptimally had to defend his title against Sean O'Malley in a way that, left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. Good on Merab Dvalishvili, good on the nation of Georgia. And good on a long-standing winning streak type guy like Bilal breaking through and becoming the best in the world.
It was just a perfect game plan. Like, I know a lot of people wanted to see just absolute mayhem, but I think if Merab went full mayhem, might have been a tough night for him. I thought it was perfect. He kept Sean just off balance all night long. And I feel like the story of this fight and the fallout is, I feel like Merab's been kind of lost in it all to a certain degree, because a lot of the narrative is Sean O'Malley was flat. He didn't look himself. Then we find out about the injury and the torn labrum. He needs surgery and he's going to take an extended period of time off. And then there's the Herb Dean side of things and how he was not a great referee in the fight and what happened at the beginning and him calling for possible timidity and all of that stuff. Yet Merab won the fight and the title. Do you feel like he's not getting the credit he deserves in the aftermath of this all?
Well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I don't know if that's a fair answer or dodging your question, right? But, when Merab and Bilal retire, they're always going to be referred to as former undisputed UFC champion, no interim or otherwise, right? Best in the world and defending his title probably in a few months, right? These are going to be great champions for the UFC, and I hate to sort of align their stories, right? But if we put the focus on Merab, he's willing to fight all of these guys. Yeah, maybe he'd rather fight Davison Figueiredo than Umar Nurmagomedov right now, but it stands to reason that he is going to be a great champion. So, excuse me, even if maybe I inject the Sean O'Malley rebuild into our conversation prematurely, and And maybe my curiosity on a Monday morning quarterback type situation lies there a little bit. Merab will be celebrated. You know, we tried our best to celebrate him as challenger, even given sort of this Noche UFC Mexico backdrop. And that's the thing too, right? Part of the balancing act. Imagine Merab gets his championship opportunity in a different setting at UFC 307 in Salt Lake City, right? It's a totally different lead up. So I guess I talked my way into thinking that maybe he's a little bit under-celebrated, and, you know, he deserves the world right now, and it's in his hands.
Umar has to be next. I like you said, I know he's calling for Davison. The Sean O'Malley rebuild, like you said, is really interesting right now because it could be 6 months, could be 9 months. He said it could even be upwards of a year. This division could look vastly different by the time he comes back. Like I know Corey Sandhagen has called for this fight. Henry Cejudo has called for this fight. And there's just so many, a slew of contenders that would be interesting matchups for Sean O'Malley. So is he in a situation because of where he's at and how many fans he has where take your time, come back, get a win, and you're right back in there?
Well, I think the good news, if you're looking for a silver lining for the UFC, is that had Sean won this fight, maybe this hip injury would have had to have been repaired anyway, right? And then you have a champion who is idling, and then you wonder if you need an interim champion. So I think right now, your new champion is pretty durable and willing to take on all challengers. And a murderer's row, of course, awaits Sean O'Malley with the Corey Sandhagens of the world and everybody else. But there are a lot of dream-type matchups at 35 for fight fans, right? I mean, even Sean O'Malley and Dominic Cruz make some sort of semblance of sense right now. So there's a lot of different fights at 35 that make a lot of sense, but Umar Nurmagomedov is not going to be denied right now. He's undefeated. He deserves the opportunity. He's been a guy who's been avoided a lot of his career. And, you know, thankfully you have, I think, a new champion who wants to prove, you know, time and time again, however many times he needs to take you down and prove he's the best in the world. He's more than willing to do it.
Great win for Merab Dvalishvili. Valentina Shevchenko is once again the women's flyweight champion. Sweeps all 3 cards. Look, it wasn't the most thrilling fight of all time, but it sure was dominant at the end of the day. It's about getting the W. It's about getting the title back. And there are only a few times that pop into my brain immediately where a champion is in the midst of a fight and they are visually frustrated. One that comes to mind is Douglas Lee when he fought Yaroslav Amosov. This man just was like, I can't do anything about this. I lose in Bellator. Like he just accepted it. Alexa Grasso was up there. Now she tried. There were certain moments that looked a little bit hairy, but Valentina Shevchenko was just a hoss in there. And it looks like the 36, about to be 37-year-old Jon Anik has more gas left in that tank, doesn't she?
Dude, I mean, a year off for Valentina Shevchenko and Alexa Grasso coaching the Ultimate Fighter. My gosh, man. And I hate to sit here and suggest that I didn't think this was inside of her. But gosh, man, just given the Alexa Grasso trajectory and given what she had accomplished in both of the 2 fights, even if she didn't win the bulk of those rounds, just felt like maybe momentum in the series and the division might have swung that way. And instead you get this vintage performance from Valentina Shevchenko that makes me think she's an even greater problem for the Manon Fiors of the world than I ever would have thought going into that fight. So credit to Valentina and her coaches and being the strategists that they are, but just to execute that strategy, as DC always talks about, over 25 minutes is very hard to do. And gosh, she made it look easy. And Alexa Grasso was in the shape of her life and couldn't do anything about it. And I haven't heard what Alexa's had to say as far as the lean into the offensive jiu-jitsu as strategy. You know, I know DC and Joe even were maybe in some disagreement as to how close some of those submission attempts were. But from my standpoint, Valentina was not in trouble for 1 second of that fight. All hail Valentina Shevchenko. And if there was any athlete that didn't need a win like this to cement her legacy, it was her. And yet, oh my God, it might be her best win. I hope that isn't overstating it.
Yeah, I could see that. And what's great about this result, either way, is, and I know Alexa Grasso has a case to be made to run it back again, but I don't think they're going to do that. And I feel like when you sweep all 3 cards, the door kind of shuts, may not completely lock behind, could be something in the future without title implications, but the division can now move along, Jon Anik. Some interesting options for Valentina. Like you said, there's Manon Fiorot, who should be next. Rose Namajunas is fighting Erin Blanchfield. Natty Ice, Natalia Silva has looked fantastic. Macy Barber's on a nice run. Plus, Zhang Weili is expressing interest in moving up. And now we saw a fight between Tatiana Suarez and Verna Jandiroba is close to being finalized for UFC 310. Perhaps that's an option we could take a little more seriously. And we talk about this all the time. You and I are in lockstep about the champ versus champ fights, how they've lost luster. But if Zhang Weili is going to move up, if she does the thing I wish all fighters would do in this situation, if she says, you know what, I'm a flyweight now, here's the belt, have fun. Should Manon Fiorot be worried? Because with respect to what Manon has done, and she's damn good, there's no denying Shevchenko versus Zhang Weili is the bigger fight.
I wasn't worried for Manon Fiorot until you just asked me that question. I mean, she deserves this fight. You and I both know it. Obviously, she backed up this weekend, which most of your audience knows. I understand the nature of some of the big names, and they are big names. Rose Namajunas fan base is excited about Erin Blanchfield. Certainly the Zhang Weili angle, my gosh, but I think we have a pretty clear rightful number one flyweight contender right now. I think the good news is that not unlike Dominic Cruz and Uriah Faber at 35 back in the day on the men's side, Valentina built this division. She really did build this division. Nico Montano's not walking through that door, right? Shevchenko built this division, and now look at what we're talking about. Maybe a problem that there are too many deserving names. So, yeah, I mean, I regret calling Manon Fiorot a bad bitch on ESPN's post-fight show, right? Because I could have used better words. I guess, in that moment. But that's what she is, and she is front of the line as far as I'm concerned. And even if she has to wait, not unlike some of these other guys, even Pantoja had to wait a while. Bilal Muhammad, of course. Manon Fiorot's got to wait because there's no sense risking it fighting, Namajunas in an eliminator. With respect to Rose and Zhang Weili, meritocracy, baby, Manon Fiorot.
There you go. John, there's going to be a 30 for 30 on this Diego Lopes rise up the featherweight ranks, and I'm all about it. Another big win over Brian Ortega. This is one-sided. It was a fantastic performance. He had the unkillable Ortega hurt many times. This man loses on the Contender Series. He hops on a short notice opportunity with Movsar Evloev, who is 18-0 and undefeated, gives him one hell of a fight and defeat, and then he's just been off to the races, man. This story is just one of the big stories of the past 2 years. This is wild, is it not?
There's no comp, right? Lost on the Contender Series, to your point, then lost his next fight.
Yes.
Been trying to break down the UFC door for years, and then 5 days notice against Movsar Evloev. I'd rather go on naked and afraid than do anything in an enclosed space with Movsar Evloev with no training camp, and almost submitted him several times. So Diego Lopes is all the rage, rightfully so. Promoter's dream. His mentality in fighting Dan Ige at UFC 303 is so rare at the elite level. There was so much at risk there. I thought there were a lot of reasons. If I'm a featherweight contender, I'm like, man, I could really do without this top 15 Dan Ige lurking, knowing that anytime anyone drops out, this dude is in shape and ready to put down the children's book and come fucking fight me. It's an inconvenient truth for Diego Lopes that Dan Ige is willing to do that. And look what he did in that setting. And then turned around without a real training camp and recovery period and did this against Brian Ortega. I'm out of words. What else can you say? It's Volk, Holloway, or Topuria. Shout out to Arnold Allen as well. I just don't know that he's going to be next in Diego Lopez's bracket. But yeah, the kid has gone from maybe after the loss, after Joe Anderson Brito on the Contender Series, the next fight losing that, maybe like never get in, and now might be fighting for the undisputed title in his next fight.
Absolutely insane. We'll take a few questions from the peeps in a moment, but I wanted to ask you about the fight of the night, the round of the year, one of the fights of 2024, Esteban Ribovics versus Daniel Zellhuber, two guys who will both have rankings next to their names at some point over the next couple of years in the toughest and best division in sports, the lightweight division. And you've called some barn burners over the years, Jon Anik. I call this fight this generation's Cub Swanson versus Doo Ho Choi. What was it like calling that fight? How did you still have a voice for the rest of that card?
What a fight. Credit to my friend Jason Herzog, who would say he was lucky and not good, but to allow that fight to continue, maybe if some of the visuals at times, he was completely locked in as the referee. And, that did allow for a potential fight of the year and a potential, to your point, Hall of Fame fight. My goodness, man. Gosh, credit to Daniel Zell Zellhuber for being so mentally responsible and desperately urgent in those moments to stay in the fight. And Esteban Ribovics was obviously the guy who came in here as the betting underdog. And you talk about how hard it is at 55. These guys really do have so many different skills, and they both came in as one-loss guys, and yet maybe you're number 28 in the world. And Ignacio Bahamondes might be better than both of them, and he might be 37 in the world, and he fought on this card and won masterfully. So it's a really hard division in which to get a number next to your name. Matt Frivola and all these guys, Drew Dober can speak to that, get it, keep it, very difficult, but tremendous fight. It's hard for me to sort of put it in context as to the great fights that I have called. I know it ranks very highly for Joe Rogan, to be sure. But yeah, man, as it's going on, I guess I would probably relate more to Esteban Ribovics, that you're just sort of trying to not miss strikes and call the fight more so than you're thinking about epically what they're doing.
Oh, so ridiculous, man. We posted a clip of just that third round of us on the watch party, just screaming our heads off for 3 straight minutes of Zellhuber getting hurt. And we're like yelling at Herzog to stop the fight. There was the moment when Zellhuber just runs into the cage wall and falls over almost. And I'm like, all right, that's enough. Well, we can stop. And Herzog's it's Noche UFC. Let's go. And then he starts firing back with big shots. It was so crazy.
Well, so I talked about this on the podcast, and I spoke with Jason on Sunday, I think, after the fights. I mean, my head was in a cloud of smoke, but, there's a lot that goes into this, and not unlike broadcasters, referees, judges, you sort of get one shot, and not unlike us being judged on every utterance potentially over 8 hours, right? My twin brother's like, dude, what are you doing calling Manol Fior, on the post show? But, judged on every utterance, and Jason Herzog has one moment. And, as I go back and watch it, right? Like in the moment, I'm like, oh man, this dude, it's 25 years old, like I want to see this kid become a world champion. Let's maybe not get another concussion, but no, Jason did a tremendous job. And historically, that's the thing. Historically, he and so many of these guys are so elite that more often than not, they really are good more so than they're lucky. But yeah, dude, what a fight, man. I hope it gets into the Hall of Fame, but I'll sit here and pine for Matt Brown and Eric Silva in Cincinnati, and that happened in 2014. So how much time do you have?
Oh, yeah. That was a hell of a fight too. All right, let's bring in some of the peeps. Let's see what they have to say. Rare opportunity. Get to sit here and ask Jon Anik some questions live on the MMA Fighting YouTube channel. Let's fire a few of these away, and then we'll bring Jed in, and the takes will be flying like crazy. It's gonna be a great time.
All right, I'm bringing this one in. I don't necessarily agree with the comment, but I'm bringing it in. So prepare.
Shout out to Pixie Pon Pon. Hi, John. Are you ever going to pronounce Manon's surname correctly? It's pronounced Fioro for the record, not Fior. Love you from France. Love when we get to have these conversations, John.
So I could pull up the name file of her saying it, but in the nature of time, I won't do that. But really, we're just trying to mimic exactly what she says. And I will play that file for you if you so desire on the Anik and Florian podcast next week, but she does not pronounce it trisyllabically as you suggest. She does say Manol Fior, but I do believe I've heard from this person on social media. And so if you would do me the service of checking out my show next week, I'll play the file and then we can continue the conversation. But she doesn't say Fioro with that third syllable, and that's why we say Fior.
There you go. Straight from the horse's mouth. Love it. Jonah, question for Anik. How do you keep your voice for 7 hours? Respectfully, I think for MMA, we should get other commentators for the prelims. Your thoughts? Any thoughts about that? Like just,
that
maybe throwing beef
amazing.
In there?
That sounds amazing. Not even so much for my voice, just for the research. I'm staring at 30 fighters at UFC 308 in Abu Dhabi versus 20 at Noche UFC. So the voice is a muscle. Sometimes I worry when I go to bed after hosting a ceremonial weigh-in and UFC Live on Friday, and official weigh-ins, 2 weigh-ins, media, some requests coming in for the UFC that I really feel like I have to honor, right? Like, Mike, I probably honor your request 9 out of 10 times, but sometimes there is some voice or energy preservation that has to take center stage. But thankfully, most times on show days, I wake up okay. And even this past show, which is not the every show, I did ask my stage manager for tea before the main event because I felt like it was going out. So yeah, only so many bullets in the gun, but so far it hasn't failed me. And Yeah, I don't know. I guess less is more, right? It's television, not radio. So let the analysts shine and save your bullets.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Jonah. Sleeto, John, bring the pronunciation of the week back. Are you not doing that anymore?
So we canceled it as of a week ago because my twin brother, Jason at Jon Anik, said he just can't fucking take the segment anymore. He really doesn't like it. So I like it. You know, we play a file every week. It's for educational and informative purposes. And I do think a lot of it makes people wide-eyed as to how these athletes actually not only pronounce their name, but can pronounce it 2 or 3 different times as they actually say it for a broadcaster. But yeah, my brother just feels like he can't fast forward that segment fast enough. But thank you for the feedback. If we get enough of that, he's in the other room. I'll go punch him in the face and we'll have the segment next week.
Oh, I love that. Love the energy here. Ladies and gentlemen, John, you've commentated all over the world on multiple continents. Where did the experience and vibe of the Sphere stack up to some of the other atmospheres you've experienced in your career?
So part of the reason I'm pining to have a UFC 307 or UFC 308 like fight card at Sphere is so that I can put in better context what exactly this venue can do when maybe a pay-per-view main card is just absolutely crazy and features a few finishes. It was all decisions, even if it featured a fight of the year on pay-per-view. So we didn't have that loud crowd that would compare to Canadians or Brazilians or Aussies or the Americans in certain cities like Boston with total objectivity, right? So it's hard for me to put Sphere in that type of context in terms of just throaty, loud, lathered MMA fans. But there's no comp in terms of a broadcasting experience and the unique nature of it. All I kept thinking about was just what we could do with another shot with sort of the world is your oyster in terms of what you could do promoting content in there. Dude, it'd be insane. We got to do it again. We got to do it again.
God, if UFC 300 was at the Sphere, oh my Lord. That would have
I'm not the creative guy in the room. All we kept thinking, and Joe Rogan and DC and I were talking about it, is just to do it again. It has to be done again. And I got to think if you're some sort of NBA executive, all I kept thinking too was Celtics Lakers, right? And you play out the history of the rivalry in these thematic, amazing images and 2 historic franchises. Yeah, maybe extend the game a little bit and have a longer halftime, whatever you do. Far easier to execute that, I would think, than 10 UFC fights. Shout out to the greatest live production team in sports.
Hell yeah. We'll take a couple more, Casey. Question for Anik. Do the Patriots get the upset win tonight?
No, Jets -6.5. It could be close, short week, potentially. Home opener for the Jets. And I think the Patriots are maybe primed to get exposed a little bit, but I'll be rooting New England every step of the way.
Hell yeah. Dave, every guest should answer what's their go-to pizza toppings. What does Jon Anik like on his pizza?
Well, I ain't going to be denigrating anybody for putting pineapple on their pizza. I don't hate it, but I like onion. I mean, if I had to put one topping on a pizza, it would be onion. I just want it to be as thin as possible.
Respect. What is Jon Anik's go-to karaoke song?
I mean, I'm saving my voice. Do they have hip hop? I mean, can we break out Busta Rhymes, Break Your Neck? You know, I'd be happy to rap that.
Fantastic.
But yeah, I don't know if there's a karaoke song that, maybe because I like to bang on my twin brother when he used to have long hair that he looks like fucking Modest Yahoo. We could do one day, Modest Yahoo.
That's amazing. So yeah, the new wrinkle to the watch party is that I have to now sing a karaoke song because I lost in our pick'em contest. So I have to sing. We put like all the popular selections on a wheel. So I have to go into some random karaoke bar tomorrow night and sing the Backstreet Boys "I Want It That Way." Which actually, in hindsight, of all the selections, I probably caught a little bit of a break because there was a lot of like Beyonce and Whitney Houston and some real tough ones that would have been real rough for me.
Friday night karaoke. Where is this happening? Are we soliciting people to come watch this live?
I'll let people know tomorrow.
Right.
First, I got to get a sitter for the kid first. That's first and foremost.
Right.
But
right. Yeah.
We'll make it happen.
You don't want to subject your kid to that, to be sure.
I mean, he would love it, but he'll get to hang that over my bald head for a while. John, do you and Jason still get into scraps? And if so, who normally wins? I'm so excited to hear the answer to this.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? Because if we really were to go at it, there would be some sort of injury that would happen probably 60 seconds in. So we actually did sort of get into it recently in a pool, if you really want to know. And yeah, there were some fouls. He actually manipulated a joint. He didn't necessarily mean to, but the dude was like committing a legitimate foul, like manipulating my thumb when I got double underhooks. So he destroys me in arm wrestling. I've yet to figure out why that is so uncompetitive and not in my favor. But yeah, if we had to scrap, I don't have a great chin, but I do think that I would be the slight betting favorite, maybe minus 135. But yeah, we argue all the time. It just doesn't always get physical because there's some sort of self-preservation, maybe subconsciously going on there.
Yeah, I bet you're both just very squirrely in there, and it just could get a little wild and rambunctious.
Yeah, I mean, we would fight at 35, so we'd be pretty hangry at that point in time. If you really want to know, the only reason we haven't fought for charity is because I've been knocked out cold twice, and I can't take a shot from my 11-year-old daughter. Never mind him. So I'm not trying to like set myself up to lose. So.
All right, Casey, one more, and then we'll get out of here. We'll let John enjoy the rest of his day. John, you're the GOAT. The research and effort you put into every card is much appreciated. Do you have any jet lag tips you've learned during travels?
Well, it's evolved for me, and thank you for saying that. I perhaps focus too much on the preparation, and it consumes me to a point where it affects my sleep. So don't let that happen in your life if you are not traveling for recreation. But as I've gotten older, I've leaned more into naps, try to sleep when I'm tired, if I actually have that time, instead of trying to get on some country's schedule. So that's been the big change. Certainly try to sweat the plane off of me as soon as I land. I actually was so desperate in Perth in advance of UFC 221 in 2018 that I was doing all that earthing stuff and trying to touch my skin to the grass because I felt so poorly. But I just think sleep when you can, lean into it, and don't try to get on a country's time zone. Just sort of sleep when you can, and when you feel good, go do things.
I'm told we have one more.
Yeah.
Fire away, Casey. Oh, where does Jon Anik rank Jon Jones pound for pound?
Right now, if you are talking inactivity dating to UFC 285 in 2023. Is that what we're talking about, right? Jon Jones is the greatest mixed martial arts athlete for me, pound for pound in the world today. I think it's pretty consensus that Islam Makhachev is the guy. But yeah, when Johnny Jones is in an active competition cycle and given body of work, yeah, he's the guy. But right now, Islam for me is, skill for skill and given activity, number one pound for pound. And, I don't know how you could argue otherwise, right? Who is it for you, Islam?
Oh, yeah. John's actually officially out of our rankings as of this cycle.
Is there a certain activity schedule you have to keep up to stay in the rankings for you guys, or is it just
18 months? You don't fight in 18 months, you're out.
Yeah. It really would have been interesting if Sean O'Malley had won and had to get his hip repaired, and you don't see him for a year, because there's so many 35ers, but there's a new world order, and it's Merab Dvalishvili, and exciting times, buddy. Exciting times.
Absolutely. Exciting having you on the program, John. A special treat to kick us off. We've never done this before in I don't even know how many hundreds of episodes we've done on this program, but appreciate you coming on. Tremendous job at UFC 306. What's next? 307? You're not going to Paris, are you?
Salt Lake City. I'm actually going to Bristol, Connecticut. Daniel Cormier fought Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic combined 5 times. So I'm going to Bristol in a few days to film a show sort of centered around DC and his experience in those 5 fights. So that's next, and then Salt Lake City.
Oh, very cool. Well, we will look forward to that. John, you are the man, and hopefully we get a chance to chat before UFC 307.
Sounds good, buddy. Have a great rest of the show. Thank you, guys.
There he is. Jon Anik. I mean, what a friggin' start to the program.